Hey everybody, it's the Ozonics Killerwinds podcast. I'm Cole Tanner.
I'm Nick Simon.
Today we're going to be talking about turkey hunting. More specifically, we're going to be talking about what if you've never been turkey hunting before? I feel like I see a lot out there just clicking around or tapping around. Be tapping? Pressing?
Scrolling around.
Swiping, scrolling.
Swipe, scroll.
Whatever.
What you do on your phone.
There you go. On your cellular device. A lot about turkey hunting. But sometimes I feel like I'm reading and seeing or watching a lot of stuff about like advanced techniques. And maybe that's what we're going to get into too. But I feel like we're just going to go through, what if you've never turkey hunted? And we're going to just kind of give you 101. I think the interesting thing is you haven't done much turkey hunting.
None at all.
Yeah, up until the last couple weeks.
Yes. Yeah, I went and filmed my cousins last year on 3 or 4 hunts, maybe.
Yeah.
And I mean, what I've experienced in the last couple of weeks has kind of really changed my mindset on it.
Yeah.
Like I've always grown up thinking like that's just a bird, but man, when they're right in your grill and you're interacting with calls and they're
gobbling
back at you, I mean,
it's like heart throbbing.
yeah, it's kind of it's like you can't even really describe it. Like, and it, like the only hunting I've really ever done is deer hunting.
Yeah.
And you miss that calling aspect, and it's been super fun to experience it firsthand, finally.
Right.
So, yeah, it's been really cool to kind of learn something new, and, you know, Cole's been doing it for a really long time, so.
But not that long. I mean, comparatively to some people that have been doing it, I mean, a lot longer. But I've been doing it long enough that I feel like I've done it the wrong way enough that I figured out how to do it my way, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
So,
but
you know, with that being said, it's been cool to learn a little bit more. And, yeah, it's been a really fun, you know, couple of weeks, like we were saying.
Yeah. So I think, first of all, let's just talk about the different ways that you can turkey hunt. I know that seems kind of maybe elementary to say, but maybe you don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I guess when it comes to first, let's talk about different weapons, right?
Yep.
Or different gear. So generally guys are either gun hunting them and they're usually using a shotgun. You can use like shotgun muzzleloaders in Iowa. I think a lot of states let you do that. Or you're shooting them with a bow.
Yep.
A bow or a crossbow, whatever that might be. I do a lot of bow hunting. That's pretty much all that I do. One thing that's really nice about the state of Iowa when it comes to bow hunting is I'm allowed to harvest 2 turkeys in the spring. If I buy archery only tags, I can hunt whenever I want the entire season, which I really like.
Right.
In Iowa, there's 4 seasons. If you gun hunt, you have to pick 1 through 3, and then you can get a 4th. So what that can do is if you're fortunate and you shoot one right off the bat, then you might have to wait a little bit, right? And depending on how the season lays out, you could get into 4 season and it's crickets.
Yeah.
So I like the ability to be able to kind of hunt whenever I want.
Right.
But so for me, bow hunting, what you've experienced with me over the last few weeks is I sit in a ground blind. Some guys bow hunt and they bow hunt on the ground.
Yeah.
You know, they just bow hunt no blind. They just literally just set up and they try to call those birds in and they, you know, get drawn, which is kind of the hardest part.
Right.
It's hard. It feels like it can be hard in a ground blind.
Yeah.
Even harder just right on the ground. But still, generally, that's what guys are doing when it comes to bow hunting. And then when it comes to shotgun or gun hunting, a lot of guys are doing the same thing. Like if a guy's not sitting in a ground blind with a bow, they're just sitting up on the ground.
Yeah.
Obviously, with turkeys, their eyesight is key. You know, I always joked, if turkeys could smell, you would never kill them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I was always taught that if a turkey's within 20 yards of you and you blink, they can see you blink.
Yeah.
Right? You know, their life revolves around picking at the ground, trying to find a piece of corn or a soybean or a little insect or an ant or a spider, whatever it might be. And I mean, their eyesight's unbelievable. And they also use that as their main form of defense, right? Like if they don't like the way it looks, they see something move, they don't like the movement, they're out of there.
Yeah.
So with gun hunting, it's all about sitting super still. I think the other big thing a lot of guys do is what they call they run and gun. They're just moving all around all over the place. Yeah. You know, they hear them and they go after them. You know what I mean? They don't just set up and sit in one place. That's why a lot of guys don't like bow hunting them, because you're just kind of sitting up and that bird's got to come 100% of the way.
Right.
Whereas with a gun hunt on a run and gun, he gobbles over there. Like you can make a move and go towards him.
Yeah.
And with bow hunting, you can do that too. It's a little tougher. The other big thing that's gotten really popular is reaping birds in, meaning you get a bird that's cocking off or is out in the field and you have like a fan, some sort of like a big fan or just a turkey fan. I mean, heck, before the gear that's come out here in the last how many years, I had a friend of mine that I hunted with that just had a turkey fan and he just held it like it was just an old fan that was all just janky. But that's what he did, So, and a lot of guys will reap them in, or a combination of all those things, right? Like you'll carry kind of with gun hunting and bow hunting, you can kind of have a lot of different type of, a lot of different ways and ways to do things kind of in your arsenal, I guess you could say, you could say, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yep. Yeah. And, this year we've solely sat out of a blind, whereas last year, I was trying to film my cousins, and a lot of times it ended up my uncle and one of my cousins, sitting maybe 20 yards away, and then I was kind of off filming. And so that was kind of interesting to have that difference because I didn't really get the experience of actually being with the hunter and like figuring out their mindset, what they're trying to do, all that.
Right.
Where I really gained that this year.
Yeah.
And so that was a really cool part of being able to be in the blind. We could kind of, you could kind of explain to me what you're doing, what you're trying to accomplish, what we're actually hearing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that part has been really cool too, and it's a lot easier to film out of the blind too, probably.
Oh yeah,
just because you're set up, you got kind of cover around most of you, whereas when you're on the ground, you kind of got to be more careful. I feel like so.
Yeah, a blind definitely creates freedom.
Yeah,
because, and you hear everybody have different experiences, and I've had the plethora of experiences with blinds too, where it seems like some years you're like really having to blend them in where the turkeys just won't put up with it, right? If it's something that's out of the ordinary, they just seem like they'll just hang up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is it because the ground blind? I don't really know. I can't ask them, but that's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah.
And then other years like this year, I mean, we've just been putting the blind in the middle of nowhere. I mean, the middle of nowhere, like with no cover. And they just, it doesn't move, and they walk right into it.
Yeah.
So it just kind of, it's crazy. But yeah, a ground blind definitely creates freedom. There's just a whole different set of circumstances that you have to deal with when you're hunting on the ground.
Yeah. Yep.
Because you can get away with movement when you can't see them. But man, once they come in the field, it is hold still and try not to cramp up and have your leg fall asleep.
Yeah. That was, I mean, like for me, like I thought that it was so crazy that, we kind of always talked about the sun and how it's coming into the blind. And it was just crazy to me that like, it just was like so weird that they would come that close.
Yep.
And like sun right in our face, like thinking, oh my gosh, there's no way this is going to work out. And then,
it
still somehow worked out. So that was another aspect, like I've been saying this entire time, that was really interesting to me. Like how you can make it work and it might not be ideal,
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think the big thing that, one of the other big things that I always talk about is the conditions.
Right.
In north central Iowa, where we're at here, it is flat. Our biggest hill is an overpass. I mean, it's just flat.
Yeah.
And so we get a lot of wind. And windy days make it tougher, right? Yeah. Just because you can't hear them, everything's moving. It just seems like there's just not as much activity on a real windy day.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking for calm days, calm mornings. Even if I can just get a couple hours before that wind picks up in the morning, that's a day that I'm trying to kind of like circle on the calendar or circle on the weather app.
Yeah.
I think the other big thing too is like what you just described is, it's always conducive to try to set the ground blind in the morning facing west.
Yeah.
So that sun's coming up behind the blind and it just doesn't shine in. But there's a lot of the spots that we've hunted this year, it just hasn't been possible.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so there's times though, like let's say that this is due east and this is the tree line and I'm sitting the blind here. There's times that I will try to set the blind offset one way or the other. And then I use Dave Smith decoys. They send, when you get Dave Smith decoys, they send them in these really awesome bags that are pretty legit actually. And they're like real tough and they're a nice big rectangle. So what I'll end up doing is I end up hanging them in the blind. You'll see in some of the video, you've got these like brown bags on the walls. And so I try to create shade within the blind by offsetting one way or the other and then tucking myself back in if I can. When you're hunting with two people, just with your hunting a buddy or like what we're trying to do, hunting with a buddy and then trying to film.
Yeah.
Sometimes what I usually try to do is I try to overexpose you
Right.
and
Yeah.
underexpose me. If I can tuck in and I know that I might be sacrificing you a little bit.
Yeah.
But then the other day I had to do the opposite of that. Like
Yep.
I was very exposed by just where we thought the birds might come in. And, I had to be super careful because it was like beaming down on us.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say too with that is, and it's funny. I don't know the guys' names offhand, but videos that I watched years and years ago before even Primos blinds, when they used to be called double bull blinds, they had on all black clothing. I'll never forget when I saw it. I was like, well, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
They just wore black sweatshirts and black hats and black gloves, and they painted their faces black even, I've seen guys paint the front side of their hands black.
Yeah.
So excuse me. I have an old sweatshirt that was from high school that used to have a hood, and the hood got all natty, so I just ripped the hood out, and I just keep using that sweatshirt, just turned inside out. It's my black turkey hunting sweatshirt.
Yeah.
So wearing black gear on the inside, black gloves, black sweatshirt, black hat, you can get black face masks. That can make a heck of a difference, right? Because then it's obviously the walls on the inside are black, so if you can just keep everything really dark, it seems to work a lot better too.
Yeah, and that was something that I personally did too. I had a camo face mask that was black on the inside. I just flipped it inside out.
Yeah.
And like the first day that we did that, like we were looking back at the footage, I'm like, wow, that actually looks 10 times better.
Yeah.
Which was kind of interesting just because it's like, just those little things can go a mile, I feel like.
Right.
And another thing too, like when you were talking about hunting the perfect days, I mean, like I said, I have no experience in this, but I noticed that there was a definite advantage of hunting those calm days because I felt like we were able to locate birds more.
Just hear them from so much farther.
Yeah, because like I can't remember which hunt it was, but we were out there and we could hear gobbles from
Felt like
way far away.
Felt like miles away. It was probably 600-700 yards.
Yeah, and I know I remember saying that. I don't know if it was this exact hunt, but I'm like, if there was an ounce of wind, I don't think we would have heard that one.
Yeah.
So just that point about picking good weather days is pretty huge, I think, too.
Right.
Because then it kind of helps you realize where they are. If you have a chance to hunt on maybe a little bit windier day, you can kind of trust the fact that you kind of knew where they were on a calm day,
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Since we're talking about ground blinds and we're talking about, bow hunting and a ground blind, one of the things that I really try to take advantage of when I bow hunt turkeys is I use decoys. For years, I used to use actually full taxidermy decoys. I had a friend taxidermist that had some old turkey decoys that he was looking to get rid of. They weren't actually decoys. I'm sorry. They were actually mounted toms and hens that like guys didn't come and pick up. And he's like, hey, I'm going to get rid of these. And I was like, dude, I'll buy them from you. Like I was like, heck. And I used to carry them. They're on these like little wooden platforms and I would carry them one in each hand. I'd have a full strut tom and a big hen and it's a hen. I would bury them in the dirt and make them all covered up. And I used those for years.
Yeah.
I got really tired of it. You know what I mean? But the thing was, I felt like the decoys I'd used before that I hadn't had really good luck with. You know what I mean? Like I remember back in the day using just like the old styrofoam roll-up ones that you like plopped out and they had this little stupid stake and then it was stapled on the bottom and it would break and it was just like janky. And then a lot of the other decoys too, I felt like they were too small. They weren't painted well. Like I just didn't like them.
Yeah.
And those taxidermy birds that I use as decoys, they worked great and they got me through. Geez, probably almost close to 10 years with them. I just kept using them actually the tom, I've had the head cut off 3 times by toms coming up and spurring it and just whapping their head right off. I mean, thing's got so much super glue and pins in every direction of it. I mean, it's just nasty now. But
yeah.
So finally I bit the bullet and I got a chance to talk to the guys from Dave Smith Decoys. And I had never really actually got to like get close to them and touch them and look at them. And they're amazing. I mean, it's crazy. The paint and like just the form and everything, they look so real.
Yeah.
And so I got a hold of some Dave Smith decoys. Last year I started with a posturing Jake and a posturing hen that I would set up. And this year I've gone to a hen that's laying down with a mounted, that like a mating Jake on top of it.
Yep.
That I have this, that you can connect a string to that runs underneath the hen and you can pull it inside the blind and it looks like the tails going up and down like a Jake would if he was trying to mount and mate her.
Yeah.
So that's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
But I think the big thing with decoys is it's tricky because it's when do you use decoys? When don't you decoys? What types of setups do you do?
Right.
I feel like what I've experienced is early, and this is just Iowa. It could be completely different for where you're at, but this is what I've experienced. Seems like here early, you can get away with like a posturing Jake or even a strutting Tom with a hen or posturing hen or something like that, where early those Toms are, they're kind of fired up. The hens aren't ready yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're still trying to figure out, the turkey pecking order of who is the guy that's going to be the dominant Tom, who is the guy that's going to be mating. They're still kind of jockeying for position. And then in the middle, I feel like, and we've made this transition, we had an experience with a bird the other day that when it kind of goes wrong on decoys, where he came in on those decoys, he came into our call from forever away.
Like so far
Yeah.
away.
Yeah. I mean, literally it was like, it was like, I think that was the guy, then you wait like a excessive amount of time and you like hit your slate call and then he gobbles right back. And you're like, that's not a coincidence. Let's try it again. And you count to like 42 and then you go again and he gobbles right away. You're like, okay, he's actually hitting, but he came from forever. Finally stepped out at like 200 yards away.
Yeah.
Couple little hillsides over. And then finally you could see him stick his head way up. And finally you could tell he just knew or saw whatever and came our direction, crested this little hill at like under 40.
Oh, for sure.
Hot, head was red hot, saw the decoys for whatever reason and didn't like it.
Yeah. And like from where we were, it was funny because like he came under one of those crests and we couldn't see him at all.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, there he is right there. And all you could just see was his head just peeking around.
Yep.
And then he kind of went down and then you saw him, but I didn't see him. And then that was it.
Yeah.
And that was super interesting to me because it's like, we just called this bird in from the next county, it felt like.
Yeah.
And he came all the way in and whatever he saw with our setup, he just was not having it at all.
Well, and I think the one thing that I would say, there's the other layer on top of that is not only about the decoy setup, because like I was going to say, I've switched now with that encounter to just hens.
Yeah.
I just use that laying down hen and the posturing hen. I set them up together because part of what happens after that, the initial, I would call pecking order, is then they get into like the breeding, right? They've established who's the dominant Tom. That Tom, what I think it comes down to too, not only your decoy setup when you're trying to just set up, but also the behavior of the bird.
Yeah.
That bird, he gobbled exceptionally. I mean, it was like amazing. Yeah. I mean, it was just like a real long gobble. He looked like a really good sized bird. You know what I mean? I mean, he looked like a velociraptor coming across that field.
Big old rope.
Oh yeah. It was a paintbrush just like rubbing on the ground as he was walking. But the problem is like when he came out, we never saw him strut. He kind of postured up one time and he came back down.
Yeah. Literally one time, I think.
Yeah. And it was like, you could tell that he was like, oh, I'm in uncharted territory. I'm not supposed to do this. I fought with what's his name the other day. That didn't work out. You know what I mean? Like you could tell that he was like, I'm not the bird. You know what I mean? He just didn't seem like the dominant Tom. And so I think that's the other trick of it is it's a little bit of you rolling the dice on a day to day that if you can encounter, are you going to encounter a submissive Tom or a Tom that's already got his butt kicked a few times? Yeah. Or is that the main guy that's like, this is my field.
Yeah.
This is my tract of timber. I own this whole stretch right here.
Yeah.
And you're in my domain and now you're going to pay.
Right.
So I think it's just a little bit of a trick. And so now we're kind of in the section of the season where hens work really well. And then late when the hens start to nest and they're tired of the Toms messing with them and they're kind of over it, but the Toms are still ready to rock and roll. Sometimes going back to that, posturing Jake, full strut, or a hen combination of that, or like make it look like you got a flock sitting out there.
Right. Yeah.
You can get Toms running right in. So it just kind of really depends. I think, I would say just start simple, right? Like, a Jake of some kind and just a hen that can work great, and then just take the Jake away. Just have the hen out there. I think there's different combinations when you're trying to bow hunt. That can be conducive to success.
Yeah, and that was as being a new to turkey hunting, that was one thing that I never realized before was, kind of that behavioral difference from, maybe a dominant bird and more submissive bird. And I really saw it that morning when we called that one in from a ways away. Cause like you could just tell the entire time, like he did
not feel comfortable.
No, like it was just weird. Like he would kind of like Just the way he was even walking. Like,
It was like it's like he was interested, but he was trying to pretend that he
Yeah.
was like pecking at the ground.
Yeah.
He was like he'd peck and then he'd pick his head way up
Yeah.
and look around and then he'd peck some more and he kind of posture up and then he'd peck.
Yeah.
And he was acting like he wasn't interested, but he
Yeah.
really was.
Yeah.
But he was like, if anybody else is looking, I'm just walking across the field.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't mind me.
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
that's something that I'm a big whitetail hunter, and that's something that I love about whitetail hunting is just seeing how different deer act,
Yeah.
whether it's a mature buck or, a younger buck. It's just I find that kind of aspect of hunting super interesting, is just seeing how these animals will react just given, where they are in that pecking order.
Absolutely.
And so that was something that was super eye-opening to me, and something that I thought was really cool, just seeing that firsthand, just how maybe a non-dominant bird will act, which was awesome to see.
Well, I think too that's been fun for me. Some of the stuff that's been happening, I'm not like talking to you about. I'm just kind of like, oh. But I think one of the things I feel like I've noticed you really like hook onto and really like is just like deer hunting. What we do affects the behavior of that animal.
Yeah,
Right.
Like
if we get a deer on the downwind side and he smells us, you know what I mean? Like his behavior changes.
Yeah.
If he's on the upwind side or if he's on the downwind side with those onyx and, he's not smelling you, you don't affect his behavior. He just goes about his merry way. And those turkeys can be the same way.
Yeah.
When they don't know you're there and you're not, if you're in a ground blind, if you're just sitting gun hunting and they don't see you, they just do their thing.
Yeah.
If you don't call at all and they just walk by, they don't see you, they really are just doing their thing. Well, all of a sudden now you start calling at them, you start interacting with them, you start, having that conversation, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And it's just really interesting to see how their behavior changes and how
Yeah.
you can affect it. And it is a real cat and mouse game.
Oh, without a doubt. Like one moment that like really stuck out to me was it was one morning they were gobbling on the roost pretty good, and you were yelping back to them and nothing. Like they were gobbling, but not really to your calls. And you're like, let me just try a different striker.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like you barely got done with it, and one just hammered right off.
Yeah.
And that right there, that was one of the coolest things I've like ever experienced. Like that was just really cool, because it's like, from somebody who doesn't do it, you just think that you're just out there just yelping away.
Mm-hmm.
Like I never realized that, there's different ways to do it, different pitches. And so that aspect has been pretty amazing too.
Yeah. I mean, when I first was taught to turkey hunt and start to call, it was said to me that turkey calling is like a country song. There might be 4 or 5 country songs on the radio, and like you hear them and it's a country song, but you're like, flip, flip. And then Morgan Wallen comes on, and you're like, yep, you crank it,
Yeah.
And that's what it is. Like I have lots of different strikers. I have a couple different, I really like a slate call.
Yeah.
But I have mouth calls too, what I mean? And I've got I've got a little, encyclopedia of a couple different mouth calls that, like, depending on the day, all of a sudden, like, that call just like really strikes them up and really gets them moving in. And I think that's just what's so fun about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think that's pretty amazing. The other thing that I will say too about that as well is that's the really fun thing and the frustrating thing. I was joking with you one of the days in the blind. It's the 2 F's, fun and frustrating.
Yeah.
Because the one thing you can count on with turkeys is you can't count on anything.
Yeah.
Why do they do what they do? Nobody knows.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Right.
I mean, like, I'll tell you what, I heard Michael Waddell say that the other day. You just like, I heard him say something about just going out in the turkey woods and just seeing if he could get the best of them, you know? And sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. Sometimes they work you over. You're like, geez, have I ever turkey hunted a day in my life? Like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like if it wasn't for bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck at all. I feel like if I wasn't for what I was doing, if I just sat here and did nothing, maybe I'd have a better chance. You know, sometimes you see them roost and the next morning they're going to come down into that field and they go the opposite way.
Yeah.
You have him screaming all the way in, and then all of a sudden he just like, he gets within range and he just like doesn't like it. And then you're like, and then you second guess. You're like, well, did I call too much? Did I not call enough? Did I call too long? Should have I stopped? Should have I started? Hindsight's always 20/20, but the problem is that the turkeys don't tell you what you did wrong, And so I think it's sometimes what you can count on is you can't count on anything.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is really fun about turkey hunting too.
Yeah. And a good testament to that was the first time that you killed this year.
Yeah.
Was when it was only my second hunt.
Yeah.
Like pretty much ever. And basically, long story short, they were gobbling really good off the roost, and I don't know, the morning kind of went on. I mean, a couple hens came through, but
Yeah.
all of a sudden one gobbled, and it was like right there, but we couldn't see it.
Yeah.
And this went on for like 2 hours, long enough to where Cole was taking a nap.
Yeah.
And they were still carrying on. And
Yeah, we were in the dip of a hill, and they were gobbling behind us to like this, and they finally came out in the field. They were following the hens, and they gobbled like just over the hill.
yeah, I mean, we were like, they have to like walk 3 feet and we can see them.
Yeah.
And like I said, like this actually went on for a really long time.
Oh, yeah, it was
And
crazy.
They were gobbling like crazy right there, and Cole's asleep, and all of a sudden I look at the hillside and I just see 4 fans. I can just see half of them. Like all of a sudden I just see them just appear, and I'm freaking out. I'm
He's
like,
like, cool. I thought there was an earthquake. So I'm like, I'm like trying to sleep. I was like, listen, you keep doing the video stuff. I'm going to,
Yeah.
I'm going to be on a conferce call. I'm not supposed to talk, but they told me it's better if I close my eyes. So
yeah, and
I'll
he's
just
like,
be over here.
he's like, let me know if something major happens, and I'm like, does it gobble count?
Yeah. He's like, can you define major? Because I don't really know what the heck's going on. But
Like-
no, and the funniest thing about that too is before I took a nap, you're like, it's funny because like, again, I could tell that you just haven't done much turkey hunting, right?
Yeah.
Because like, you're not you don't have like the seasoned experience,
Yeah.
seasoned experience of knowing that like, sometimes that's just what they'll do, you know, and like they'll just all of a sudden like just stop gobbling altogether and they'll just get dead quiet. But they were gobbling like crazy, and Nick's just like, "Jeez, all I want is one bird to come strutting in so I can video it. Jeez, is that too much to ask? Jeez, they're right there. We can't even see them." He's like, and he's getting all mad, and I was like, dude, like just hang tight. Like this is just how it goes. I don't know what to tell you. Like it's fun, and then it's really frustrating. Like I'm gonna take a nap. You know what I mean? Like you keep looking, and then no more than when that happened, we're gawking at these ones over here, and then they like tease you.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden they would come a little bit closer, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden you could only see their tips of their fans. Then you're seeing like their whole fan. You're like, "Oh, there's their head. Oh, he's ready. He's fired up." And then there was 4 of them.
Yeah, and it was funny too because in the video you can see just their fan,
Yeah.
and that was it. And you can see all 4 of them. And there was that one time Cole yelped at them, and all you can see is all 4 fans, and then their heads just all of them right at the same time. And so the footage was actually really cool.
Yeah. And the wind was ripping. We had a northwest wind, and so I tried to sit on that just tree line to think hopefully it won't be so bad. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
won't be like right on the open. And they're just sitting there, dude. It's almost like if that Tom could talk, he was just sitting there going with his fan, like I'm not gonna stop. You know, he's
trying
like
not to
like
blow
the
away.
wind was like blowing his fan down. He's
Yeah.
like, no, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was just. I mean, they were just bucking it up there.
Yeah, and so all this is going on, and then all of a sudden, a tom comes from the complete opposite direction. Like
Never gobbled once.
never.
We had no idea it was there. We're sitting here like this, looking at all these birds right here, and then all of a sudden, like I told you too, I'm like, you watch, because I think I took my
you shed a layer. And
yeah.
were putting something-
I took like something off because it was getting a little warm. I'm like, and I took my binos off. And I joked, I'm like, you watch, this is when it's gonna happen. It's always like when you're not ready. So I'm like, kind of put my binos back on, and I like kind of glance like this, like, and there he was.
You go. Oh, there's a henny. You go. Oh wait, no, I think that's a Tommy actually.
Yeah, and then boom, he just came.
Oh, walked right.
Just
in.
walked right in on a string. But that's the interesting thing about when it comes to bow hunting is, you know, with a gun, you feel like you can just really watch him put on a show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then really decide like, you know, when you're going to take that shot. You know what I mean? I feel like with bow hunting, you know, them coming into the decoys or coming into within bow range, that's only like half of it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of 3 parts. It's getting them in range, it's getting drawn, and it's making a good shot.
Yeah.
And you have to do all 3.
Yeah.
You know, and luckily he came in, and what I usually do is I think about their fan like a wall. And if you can't see their face and you can't see their eyes, then they can't see you. It's crazy. Like when they fan out and they're strutting, if they're here and then all of a sudden this, and he's like this, and he turns like this, and you can't see his face, you can be like, and they'll just, and they turn, and as long as you stop moving when they turn back, they don't know.
Yep.
I mean, it's crazy that it's like, for how incredible their eyesight is, they kind of have a big glaring weakness in a way, you know?
Yeah.
But so luckily he turned, I got drawn. you know, we got him within range. Then I got drawn, and then, you know, settled in, and I hit just a skosh low.
Yeah.
But it was still a great shot. He was
Yeah.
quartering too, so I know it kind of ripped into everything.
Yeah.
And he barreled off the field. And then, we found him not too long after that, and just a great bird.
Yeah.
I mean, just an awesome day.
Yeah. It was a really cool experience to finally get one filmed.
So after it was all said and done, I just sat there and I was like, "You want one to come straight in, huh?" Strutting the whole time, right into. I think didn't that just happen? I'm pretty sure it just happened.
Yeah.
Don't say I told you so, but I kind of told you so.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't strut that good.
Yeah,
He did one time.
It's like
pretty
your
close.
007. The world is never enough.
Footage was decent.
Yeah. No, but that was pretty cool. Like I said,
Yeah.
and that's just a thing where it's just like right when you feel like you got it all figured out,
Yeah.
you don't have anything figured out.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and so that was before we had that encounter with that one that we called from way in.
Yep.
So then after that hunt, that's when we pulled the Jake. And then the first hunt without the Jake.
Yeah, we pulled the posturing Jake.
Yep. And then that
And pulled the mating Jake on top of it.
right. Yep. So we just had
I just went to straight hens.
Yeah, we had a standing hen and then a laying down hen.
Yep.
And the first hunt with that was
Insane.
it was absolutely unreal.
Yeah.
I mean, like, just that whole morning was just crazy. I mean, there's deer running all over, turkeys gobbling everywhere. I mean, it was just like the epitome of like a hunter's dream, no matter what it is.
Yeah, it's like if that was your last turkey hunt
Yeah.
and that was it, you'd just be like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
that was pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and it was just insane. Like we talked about earlier about like that dominant and submissive Tom and then the tactics and changing your decoys. So we really went a whole different direction.
Yeah.
We were in a spot where we knew there was toms and turkeys going to be hopefully roosted near there.
Yeah.
It was a spot that you usually try to only hunt on a real calm day because if it's in kind of an open field and if you sit there, it's on a top, it just rips.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like the birds like that much, and it's hard to keep the blind down.
Yeah.
We got a couple of calm days. So like, hey, let's try it. And sure enough, I mean, this Tom had like the most epic gobble. It felt like it was like a second longer than everybody else's.
Yeah.
And, it was unbelievable how it worked out.
Yeah.
He gobbled on the roost. He came down, gobbled good. And then he finally, it was like, I always joke that with the tom and a hen and a gobbling tom, it feels like it's almost like a dance.
Yeah.
It's like the tom's like courting the hen.
Right.
And he's doing his ritual.
Yeah.
And that guy took his sweet time.
Oh my gosh. And yeah, so he was roosted behind us.
Yeah.
And he came down off the roost behind us too. So we didn't see him for a while. Like he carried on for quite a while and we didn't see him. But at one point, Cole, he just popped open a window behind us.
Yep. Just peeked out.
And like you were just like, dude, you need to see this.
Yeah. It's like, who cares about filming? You need to just see this. So it's permanently like carved into your brain, seared into your memory.
Yeah, and when I tell you that I turned around and I literally thought that I was looking at a Outdoor Life magazine, like it was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Like the sun was shining right on him. He was up against the neighbor had like some
sort of like little makeshift like little blind thing.
And he was standing right there just gobbling his head off. A deer walked out right behind him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it was just like breathtaking.
Yeah, it didn't even feel real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just glistening.
Yeah. It was just perfect.
Yeah.
And so, but we knew like, I think at the end that when I looked, I was looking at him for like a little bit, but then like at the end of it, like it looked like he was really starting to make his way right towards us. Mm-hmm. So we kind of started to get serious.
Yeah. Well, and he was, and again, he felt like he was a dominant bird. Yeah. He was gobbling like a maniac. He was strutting the entire time.
Yep.
You could hear him spitting and drumming.
Yeah.
And it was wild because he just kept coming closer and closer and closer. We had the blind set in such a way, again, we were trying to offset it just a skosh, had the decoys kind of to our left, hoping that if a bird came, the fence was kind of like open there.
Yeah.
That if they were behind us or whatever, that, and he kind of read the script.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he took a sweet time.
Yeah.
He was reading really slow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he just kept gobbling and gobbling and gobbling. And we have the video, we had GoPros set up in the blind where you can just you can hear it on the GoPros.
Yeah.
Let alone the shotgun mic of the actual camera.
Yeah.
I mean, and he gobbled, had to been 5 yards behind the blind.
If that.
I mean, he was there.
So
I mean, you could feel it like in your chest.
Yeah, and the shotgun mic that we have is very nice. Like, it's a really good shotgun mic. And I always wear an earpiece just so I can hear everything, make sure audio's good, whatnot, whatever. But I could hear, like, the first time he gobbled, like I could, like, there was at one point I'm like, I think I just heard him fan out. Like,
Yep. You could hear the spit drum.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I kept hearing that, and it just kept getting louder and louder in my mic. I'm like, what the heck? And he's gobbling, and it's like so loud in my earpiece. And the last time he gobbled, he had to have been. So I could hear every step he took, and he let out this gobble, and it was so loud in my earpiece. I was like, holy crap, he's right there.
The funnest part for me was to watch your reaction. Because it's funny because the videographer's used to is supposed to be stone cold.
Yeah.
And you were having a heck of a time.
Oh,
I think there was one time I say like, dude, you got to calm down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, okay, you're getting me excited. Like, you got to calm down. You're like, oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Hey, this is awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was insane. Like I said, and the interesting thing about that is I called at him pretty aggressively and was really, really interacting with him when we didn't see him.
Yeah.
Then when he came into view, I like put the call down.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like that's kind of one thing that I do a lot is if I get them in the field and they're angling at me or they're kind of coming our way.
Yeah.
Man, I have to like consciously get the call out of my hand.
Yeah.
Like you see me, I like put it in my deal,
Yeah.
put my striker back, and I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
Because I like to call. It's fun.
Yeah.
But like I think in that situation, the thing is not to.
Yeah.
And I think you see that when you see, I think the thing that I try to do too is really see and really pay attention when I have real hens in front of me.
Yeah.
And how they interact with toms. And we saw that multiple times where we had hens come in and sometimes they're very vocal and other times they're just putting and purring and making real soft yelps.
Yeah.
When they're around other toms too, So I feel like when we had him in view, I just really tried to quiet down and let him do his thing and not try to like force him or call to it in such a way that was almost gonna like scare him off.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, and then that was the crazy thing. I mean, he came through the fence. We didn't like, I don't remember exactly stepping it off, but it was like 5 yards.
If that, because
I mean, there was like a little bush right there.
Yeah, because we were set up. Earlier, Cole was kind of saying how like you can just set up a blind anywhere and they might not care or they might care. Well, this bird didn't care because we were literally pushed up against
a fence,
a shrub.
Yeah, a shrub that was like half the size of the blind.
And then there was another one that was
a couple feet away.
And we originally had thought that he crossed on the other side of it, but looking back at the video, he actually crossed between us and that shrub. So it was probably between like 3 and 5 yards.
I mean, you could hear his strutter feathers like rubbing on the dirt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Going through the corn stalks.
Yeah.
Like it was just like, dude, give me a break.
Yeah, and the way that he came, he was straight to our left. So it was me, Cole.
Yep.
And then where he came. And so I had the camera turned as far as you could. And it was a grind. Like I think the clip was like 17 minutes long. And I'm like, I could hear him really good. So I don't know how close he was.
Yeah.
Like for me, I'm like, he could have been 10 feet long time ago.
Yeah.
So I'm just like trying to be as steady as possible. And all of a sudden I see that shrub that was next to us just shake a little bit. I'm like, oh baby, here we go.
Yeah.
And when he came through, the footage is crazy because he's so close that I was filming him through the mesh. Like he wasn't far away enough to where I could actually film him through the clear part of the blind. It was through the mesh.
Yeah.
So I mean, he was close.
Yeah, and you're filming through that Primo see-through mesh.
Yeah.
And which usually it kind of really plays tricks, but he was so close it didn't make a difference.
No. Yeah.
It was that close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and so he kind of just worked right in. And again, the whole three things, like we got him within range. He came to the decoys. He finally turned.
Yep.
I got drawn, and like you said, to be brutally honest, I hit him, and I hit him low.
Yeah.
And I hit him low. He kind of went up, came back down, and he started to run back off to the left. He got like probably 40, 50 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, at a full run. And then he actually flew.
Yeah.
Which again, when you're trying to kill a turkey, watching him fly is never a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like you said, killing turkeys with a bow is really hard. You know what I mean? Like there's different ways to do it. Some guys shoot them in the head, you know what I mean? And then that's that. You either hit them or you miss them generally.
Yeah.
But like for me, I like trying to kind of break them down. I try to shoot them in the vitals. Their vitals are pretty small.
Yeah.
And it's actually kind of different than where you think the vitals would be. I mean, I show you that thing I have in my truck. I'm always like looking at pictures on my phone. I know where it is, but I just like to remind myself. But yeah, I just didn't hit the right spot. We watched the video 100 times. I don't know what I did.
Yeah.
There's no excuses. I wounded him.
Yeah.
We made an asserted effort, went over and looked for him for a long time, just couldn't find him.
Yeah.
And honestly, you could see on the arrow, like I breasted him, you know. You could see the meat on the arrow.
Yeah.
There was like very little blood. The blood that we found was just like looked like if you like cut your finger, basically.
Yeah.
It was just like little drops.
Right.
So, you know, I think he'll probably live to see another day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was really bittersweet, you know, and I think it was really, you really helped me through that, I guess, because you know, in a way you kind of feel like you throw a little bit of a pity party.
Yeah.
But dude, it was just such an amazing deal.
Oh my God.
To see him, and then even with the day before, you know, it's just like that other bird came all the way in and then walked off, and then this guy just was like, he was on the other end of the spectrum. If that guy was Jekyll, this guy was Hyde.
Yeah.
And he was on a mission.
Yeah.
And you know, and he did everything.
Yeah.
And it just didn't 100% come together, but it was still awesome.
Yeah, and that was it too. Like,
I mean, afterwards you were like, dude, I don't care what you say, that was the coolest turkey hunting encounter ever.
God, by far, like not even close. And that was like obviously, like as bow hunters, as hunters, anything, like it sucks to wound whatever you're trying to hunt.
Right.
There's no way to make it better.
Right.
But from me filming it and like getting that really cool footage and experiencing it, like that didn't cross my mind once. I wasn't like, oh wow, that really sucks. It was just like everything was so perfect. Like you like need to be able to, in that situation, pick out the positives.
Yeah. And
to me, the positives just completely overtook the one negative of that day.
Well, not only that, but like I think the one thing that like, and you can hear it on the other cameras that we had set up pointing back at us in the blind. You know, I feel like the thing that I like, even right in the heat of the moment, I'm like, what did I do wrong? You know, it's like I felt like that was the thing too. Even like as we're talking about this, you know, I think a lot of people are like, well, do you show that? I'm like, yeah, 100%. I mean, it's real. You know, I mean, the reality is if you've bow hunted long enough, like it comes together, and then sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. And like I don't want to cast judgment on anybody because I've missed before, I've wounded before. Yeah. Like that's the thing. It's the arrow's not going 2,500 feet per second. Right. You know, I mean, and I make no excuses. I just made a bad shot. Yeah. But I think the big thing, like we talked about in that day, and we talking about right now, is what can you learn from it? Yeah. You know, I think the big thing that I took away from that is, and it's funny because when I guided, I always would say this before, and I say it to my little boy Jet. You always have got one more second. You know, just take that one more second and like really, really settle in. Yeah. Like even, you know, just to say I've got one more second, you know, just really, really put that pin, or think about your form or whatever that thought is. And I guess I just didn't do that. You know what I mean? Or something went wrong, you know, like the arrow didn't go where I had it pointing, you know what I mean? And I mean, I went home and I shot everything and it wasn't anything like that. I just made a bad shot.
Yeah, and that was when we were walking to the back to the truck. Like I talked to Cole about. I listened to a podcast. Can't remember who it was, but basically it was
those Zonks Killerwinds podcast. No, I'm just kidding.
Might be
one of the two episodes.
Yeah. But anyways, the topic was, or the big talking point was, what makes a good hunter a great hunter, and it's something that stuck with me like so deep. Like I try and think about it so much because, like with deer hunting, like stuff goes wrong so much. Stuff does not go the way that you want it to go. And the one thing that he said, it wasn't how many big deer you shoot, the amount of deer you shoot. It was when stuff goes wrong, how do you react and how do you learn from it? And so that was just something that we talked about. It was just like, it didn't go wrong, but did you enjoy the experience? Did you enjoy the hunt? Because that's why we're out there, right? I mean, we love doing this.
Yep.
And what did you learn from it? So I just thought that was like just the perfect example of like, reflecting on what happened and how you can learn from it. So it was just, like I said, it was just an incredible morning. Like it was so cool to be a part of it. It was awesome.
Yeah, no, it was kind of funny because it felt like kind of a culmination of all these different things that you had kind of almost like first time experiences, you know what I mean? Of seeing come together, even hearing you talk about things, as the season went on, to hear you be like, oh, well, man, the sun's gonna be terrible for that tomorrow morning. You know what I mean? As we talk, like, well, it's gonna be a windy, isn't it? Or like, it's just so funny to hear like the mantra of a turkey hunter, just like, just all of a sudden just start coming out. You know what I mean?
Just trying to be a sponge, I guess.
Yeah.
Learn everything I can in a short amount of time.
Yeah. So like we talked about earlier, one thing that I like to do is I bow hunt. So I buy archery only tags, which kind of gives me the ability to hunt kind of when I want, or, when everything kind of lines out. This year in Iowa has felt kind of different. Usually the youth season, I've been fortunate the last couple of years, my little boy Jet and Bo, my little girl Bo, she's not little, she's 9, jeez. But she'll be like, I'm not little. But anyway, they've been youth hunting. My brother-in-law, Justin, his boys, we've been taking them youth hunting. And so we've gotten to hunt like the weekend before. It opens on a Friday, Saturday, Sundays, just youth. And usually youth can be kind of a slam dunk because it's like spring's starting to lay out and man, they're just really just hammering.
Yeah.
This year, Iowa has had some really cold weather. I mean, heck, it's, almost the end of April, and the farmers are just getting out in the fields. Like they're like in the last couple of days, are chisel plowing, are planting. They're just getting out there. The ground's been cold. It's been pretty dry, but it's been cold.
Yeah.
And so I felt like that's kind of delayed everything. It just felt like even when we were out there with the kids, it just felt like it just wasn't happening.
Yeah.
I say that, and my little boy Jet was fortunate enough to harvest one, but still, it just felt tough. You know what I mean? Like, it just felt, you're like, man, what am I doing wrong? They're not responding. They're not cooperating. We're not interacting. We just felt like we were in their way.
Yeah.
And I feel like now that it's 4th season here in Iowa, it's almost like everything just was delayed a couple weeks. And now it's just really heating up, and it's just been on a rocket ship.
Yeah.
And I feel like the hunt we're going to talk about now really was the peak of that.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
So we sat that spot, and we sat that spot on the top of that field. And like I said, there was a little bit of a stretch there, kind of in between here and there where we had some calm days. And so we got another calm day, and I'm like, man, do we try it again? Like, can lightning strike twice, like in the exact same spot? Like with the birds that we were already kind of interacting with? Like, I don't know, what I mean? Like, let's try it, So we went in there again, set literally the exact same spot, had the decoys pretty much the same. And again, Tom's gobbling like crazy. But this time we had what seemed like the dominant Tom that was gobbling hard, strutting like he was a stud. And there was 4 others, or no, 3 others. I'm sorry. Yeah, so it was 4 altogether. The big main strutter and 3 others that were like the 3 Stooges.
Yeah.
That were like, wherever he went, they were going to follow him. If he went over here, they were going to come over here. And then when he went this way, they were coming this way. They were just lagging behind. They would gobble. They would maybe strut up if he was like far enough away.
Yeah.
Yep. But it was just like, they were like the trailer to his semi.
Yeah.
They just didn't, they were just hanging in the back.
Yeah.
And luckily we had a couple hens that came into the field that we were in, and it seemed like she was not happy with me. And that's one thing I'll do a lot too is, You know, people like you hear people like, well, what do I do? And like even as I've been like, hey, just here's the slate call, like
Yeah.
this is how you scratch it. You know what I mean? Start doing it. You know, like what I try to do a lot is I just try to do what the hens are doing.
Right.
You know, if she's yelping 3 or 4 times in a cut at the beginning or end, like I'll just do that back. If she speeds up, I'll speed up. A lot of times I'll try to cut them off.
Yeah.
Which I kind of feel like they don't like. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then they'll cut you back off. And if you can get a hen worked up, the toms are going to go wherever the hens are going.
Right.
And so if you can call a hen in, there's probably going to be toms close by. So sometimes I feel like I'm almost calling the hens more than I am the toms.
Right.
In that situation, I felt like we were calling the hen.
Oh, 100%.
Because eventually it felt like she came this way, he came this way. She went this way, he went over here. She
Yeah.
came back this way, he came over here.
Yeah.
It was almost like there was a string connecting them.
Yeah.
And he was going to kind of go wherever she was going
Yeah.
to a point.
Yep.
And she came into our field and she finally just lollygagged and worked her way to us. And then when she finally, like the number one, came within bow range, we weren't going to shoot her because she didn't have a beard, but she did not like that posturing hen.
No.
That Dave Smith decoy is a posturing hen, and she came on that posturing hen and she postured.
Yeah.
She got all fluffed out. You saw her kind of put her fan out a little bit.
Yeah.
She was like sizing herself up. She's like, this is my field. That's my tom. What are you doing here?
Yeah.
And she hung on our decoys for 5-10 minutes. Well, he kind of kept moving around and the other 3 are moving around. And it was just like this big game, you know what I mean? And it felt like everything was circling around this one hen.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
You know, and it just so happened that I was like, even when she came in, I'm like, okay, we're in business, you know. But then where it can just all of a sudden feel like they rip your heart out of your chest, then all of a sudden she kind of started to kind of like, okay, I'm tired of you. She works back this way. We're like, crap.
Yeah.
You know, well, that's done because she's going to go here and he's going to move off. Then she's going to go behind us. Then he's going to follow her.
Yeah.
And that's the game. And she's just going to pull him along.
Yep.
And when she kind of came onto the fence line, then he kind of worked back to our left.
Yeah.
And then for whatever reason, then she went through the fence. Then she came back onto our side again.
Yeah.
And then for some reason, she decided that, you know what? I want to go that way.
Yeah.
Which means she had to walk right by us.
Yeah.
And then the string was going to get pulled tight and he was going to have to come in. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And he came through that fence. Dude, I'll never forget that. Just seeing him strut,
Yeah.
you know, down towards us. But the interesting thing as all this is happening is we're filming with these nice Sony cameras, right? Nick is a great videographer. And one thing he really takes a lot of pride in, obviously, not only with videography, but he really likes to film in 120, which means 120 frames per second. What that allows you, 120 native, right?
Yeah.
So he can film in 120, but you can speed it up technically.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. To make it look real time, just like you would normally see.
Yeah.
But then you can also slow it down.
Yeah.
But the problem is it takes up a lot of card space.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I'm looking at you, and this had been going on with this
time.
a long time.
And in the morning when all the 4 toms were in the
Chasing all
neighboring
around.
field,
Yeah.
I had a lot of footage of
Yeah,
that
they're
just
right
because it
on-
was really cool. The sun was just coming up. Like, it was awesome.
Yeah, they're right on the top of this hill.
Yeah.
The hens are right here. They're strutting back and forth.
Yeah.
So you're like you're just burning through cards.
Yeah.
Or burning through the card.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he's looking at me. He's like, you're like, dude, I've got like 9 minutes left. You're like, first I think you said like, I got 14 minutes. I was like, 14?
It was like 14.
I'm
Then
like,
I looked
oh my
again and it
gosh.
was at like 11.
Yeah.
And then finally when I'm like, okay, I need to do something, I think I was at 9 minutes.
Yeah.
And so
As he's walking in, you're like going back through and trying to you're just fire sailing like all the clips. You're like, I don't care. Delete.
yeah, I'm like, I would way rather get some good footage of this Tom strutting in and hopefully getting a kill shot.
Yeah.
So I'm deleting as much as I can. I think I got it up to 12 minutes, I think.
I thought you said 9 or 12 or something.
I think I got it up to 12. And then, it just...
Yeah. And so he just kept working towards us. And like you said earlier, like it felt like, and we were talking about here, it felt like this string being drawn tight.
Yeah.
And when she walked this way, it kind of put slack in it. But then when she came back by the decoys, it like pulled it tight.
Yeah.
And when she walked by, it was like, okay.
Yeah.
And he just strutted right into the decoys. But even in that moment, I felt like he wasn't going to stop.
No, I thought he was going to walk right by.
Yeah. I mean, I was in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to like just commit and draw where he's going to see me and then just hope that he sticks his head up long enough that I can settle in.
Yeah.
Well, he just held up. And then it was funny. He started to turn, but you can see on the video, you can see him like kind of like looking out of the corner of his eye, like checking us out almost.
Yeah.
Got completely turned. I got drawn. And I really felt like I learned from before. I was like, take another second. That was kind of the mantra in my head. I'm like, take another second.
Yeah.
And he turned and he gave me that broadside shot. And dude, I just cherry picked him.
It was pretty awesome.
Oh my goodness.
Like just like seeing like the hunt before that I was with him where he wounded the one.
Yeah.
And just like the initial impact of the arrow hitting him was just so different.
Yeah.
Like in the video, you can instantly hear me say, like, I don't know.
I think you said done.
Yeah, I said something.
Yeah.
But just the initial impact, you're like, oh yeah, that one hit him good.
Yeah.
Like for sure. And sure enough, I mean, he piled up and died within 40 yards probably.
He came straight up in the air. You could see, it's crazy how acrobatic they look. I mean, he like looked like he did like a 360 somersault backflip thing.
Yeah.
And he came down and then he tried to run off, and you could tell he was just hurting unit.
Yeah.
40 yards, and then crappie flopped. And if you don't know me very well, dude, it's terrible. I get really excited. I get excited about anything. It could be a doski, dude. I come unglued. I have to constantly, you could go back and hear me on that first one when that first time came in. I have to talk to myself.
Yeah.
I have to be like, dude, you need to calm down. Yeah. I like have this like, little guy over here be like, dude, you need to relax. You need to calm down. Take your time, because I just lose it.
Yeah. And if you guys think that the Tom gobbling close to the blind hurt my ear, dude.
You might have like 10% hearing loss.
Yeah, I gotta like figure something out when I'm hunting with this guy.
Yeah, just like rip your headphones off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes! Look at him. Got him. Yes. Yeah! Yes. Dad! Let's go! Cherry picked you! Woo! Yes! Yes!
Yeah, so I came unglued. I was really excited.
Yeah, he lost his marbles for a little bit.
Yeah.
He was screaming very loud, but
Hey,
it was warranted, I think.
oh man, it was well, and it was just like the craziest thing, like how, we kind of joked about after, it kind of felt like we were in the sweet spot.
Yeah.
We were in the sweet spot where like the birds were, you could interact with them, you could call them, you could, maneuver them, and you could get an opportunity to kill them.
Yeah.
Or, just to get a shot on them.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, it felt like we were just kind of in that sweet spot, and you never know when it's going to stop, you know? And man, it was on. And to think about the first bird we killed, and then to have that bird that we called all the way in,
Yep.
and then walked off, and then I wounded the one, and then to kind of,
Finally cap it off.
Yeah.
It
to
was
just
like,
and all of a sudden, boom,
I just kept telling Cole, I'm like, God, that feels so good.
yeah.
It was just like we were in just this, every time we were able to go together and film, it just seemed like something happened where it was really close.
Yes.
And it just never came together. And so when it finally did, it felt so good.
Well, and it's funny because like we were talking about that day sitting there blind about like, the podcast is called Ozonics Killerwinds.
Yeah.
And Ozonics has, man, it would be a stretch to think about what Ozonics does for turkey hunting, right?
Yeah.
Like we hear guys that'll take Ozonics turkey hunting, they say they'll use it because they're hunting their same areas that they deer hunt and they don't want to pressure. I mean, heck, we've seen where we've got trail camera, the river spot.
Yeah.
Heck, we'll pull the pictures up. We were in there, and the next day there's deer right in front of that because they figured out where we crossed the field and they walked all the way across and they were lollygagging through there trying to figure out what the heck, who is walking out here in the middle of April?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is that Cole? You know what I mean? Like, they know something's up.
Yeah. He's not supposed to be here till fall.
Exactly. So it's unbelievable. I mean, deer have unbelievable noses. Again, this is called Ozonics Killerwinds podcast. Like you don't probably there's not much of an advantage to using Ozonics for turkey hunting.
Yeah.
But the reality is that all of us that are deer hunting all fall, I don't know all of us, but a good chunk of them are turkey hunters. And the reality is that it's game. The one thing about turkey hunting, I feel like that is very relatable to deer hunting is the fact that it's all about getting close to stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially when you're bow hunting turkeys. you're bow hunting a deer, it's a sport of getting close.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is just really, really fun about it. And again, if harvesting a deer or harvesting a turkey or harvesting an animal, if it's a knife, you've got to try to figure out ways to sharpen that knife.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, turkey season is a great time to do that, to get in the heat of that moment and to get that confidence to be like, what? I mean, a turkey's heart is not very big.
Yeah.
They're vitals and they're constantly moving. It's a trick. I mean, you even said, you're like, man, dude, I feel like if I can kill a turkey, I can kill about anything.
Oh gosh, yeah.
It's tricky, and so that's what I think is really fun about it. And like you said, we hope that you guys have enjoyed us talking about, this spring and what we've done with this turkey. And I think it's been kind of cool. Again, like we talked about at the beginning, I think there's people out there that have never turkey hunted before, and they'd love to, and they don't know what to do or where to start. And so hopefully maybe we gave you a little bit of information that, can relate to some of that. Maybe you can take a little nugget of that. And again, I think it's been fun just to share our experience and some of our hunting adventures. Because again, we love to hunt and harvest deer as best we can, but man, I love killing turkeys too.
Yeah. It's, I'm starting to get it a little bit.
You got the itch.
Yeah. Just a little bit.
Dude.
It's coming.
I can tell you. I can tell you got the itch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Like I said, this is Ozonics Killerwind podcast. Thanks for listening. I hope you have a great day. And if you get out hunting, good luck.